Penny, first up.
I am wanting to get a variance at my property, which is 262 West 7th Avenue here in Nucla. Right now, as we all know, that there's a chicken crisis. There's also an egg shortage because of the bird flu. The average price of a 6-month-old laying hen in Colorado is $40 to $60 each, but you can't hardly find them. The chicks that you buy, 1 day old, are anywhere from $10 to $12 in the state of Colorado. The Chapter 6 of the Animal Code states that you can only have 12 chickens per residence. But right now, the option to have chickens at all is on the line because, like I said, you can't find them. You haven't got that many people growing the chickens. I've got a lot of people right now that have busy times in their life, and they have asked that if I got chickens, if I would raise chickens for them. So you get them at 1 day old, and you raise them for 5 months. The next month, then they will be a laying hen. So the variance that I'm asking for is that I be able to have the, not really the freedom, I guess, but be able to do that for people. Right now I'm raising 12 chicks for me. I've got the Sutherlands who have lost 7 chickens in the last 2 weeks because of the dogs that are loose in our neighborhoods. They have asked if I will raise chicks for them. But I can't do that because I have a neighbor who doesn't think that he can stay off of the property and he has to count my chickens every day. So I'm asking for a variance at my property. I'm trying to go about it the right way. So I would have them from, when you order them, you get them a day old. And then you just raise them from there. Most people want to order 12 chicks at a time. That's just what they want. They want a dozen chickens because that's what our ordinance says you can have. But we do have those who want only 4 or 6. So I guess the variance that I'm asking to be put on the agenda is, and I don't even know how many to ask for, or if I'm supposed to ask for a certain amount. Between the people that I've got asking me right now, I would have 36 chicks at a time. And like I said, I'm trying to cover my bases first so that we don't have an issue with somebody saying, she's got all these chicks running around and I've not got approval for it.
Is your yard fairly enclosed? You have a fairly enclosed yard that wouldn't create a problem for your neighbors, right?
It is totally enclosed.
Mm-hmm.
My backyard has chain link fence all the way around it except for where you would come into the chicken coop, and it's got 6-foot hog panels covered with chicken wire.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see a variance request in my board packet. Did you guys have?
I did turn one in, yes.
Oh, okay, I hadn't seen it either.
And,
I guess I didn't
When was
notice
it
that
turned
either.
in?
oh no, I didn't do the variance, I just did the record search.
Okay.
Okay,
I was gonna say, I didn't
Okay.
see the document in here for that request, so.
so I guess that's why I would put it on the agenda.
You need to fill out the variance request, and then it would be put on the next agenda for the board to act on, because we don't have it on the agenda or a variance even request.
And then we meet again on March.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Okay, so I need to do that first.
Yes, fill out the request.
And then it'll be put on the agenda.
Okay, well, at least if I do that, then at the next meeting,
Yeah, we'll have more of an idea what
You're
you're here
aware.
for too.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so number of chicks you anticipate, number of pullets, and then number of full-grown chickens.
and I can include that, once my 12 are grown, those are my layers.
That's the question. Long-term, what are we looking at?
Right, and I will try to put that in there for a 5-month period. It would be however many people have ordered of the chicks, of the little pullets. Yeah. So if there's a certain number that I can have, then I will not order over that. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Penny, very much.
You're welcome. Also on your website, it states that tonight's meeting was at 6 o'clock. So there were a few,
I saw you sitting out there.
a few of us here. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you.
All right, Marcy?
Yes, sir. My name is Marcy Weatherby. I have been trying since December to get into low-income housing. They have had sewer issues. And now I'm told that perhaps the sewer may have collapsed. I was just wondering if there has been any plans into having it dug up, fixed, repaired. I know it's not a town thing.
It's not at all a town thing, but to answer your question, it was dug up today.
Any ETA on it?
Nope, 'cause we dug up one spot. We don't know if there's more. So, I can't. Other than that, this is a personal thing between us, cause it's not town business. So, really, it should be done off someplace else. So, this is about a private property, it's not the town business. So, if you wanna call me, then feel free, or I can call you. I know you're under the gun from somebody, but
Yeah,
it is what it is.
and that's the same person asked me to come here.
Yeah. He could've just called me. Anyway, okay,
I
I'll
gotta
call
go
you.
where the gun points me.
I'll call you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Jane Thompson?
So I found in the first of every year, you pass a resolution designating the official public notice location and the official newspaper of general circulation of the town of Nucla, Colorado. I know that you can't answer anything I say. I've been coming here, this is my 3rd meeting, and you're obviously not gonna answer me, and you can't. But I don't know, the way that reads, it looks to me like you could have put something in the paper. And again, and I'm probably going to show you this every time I come, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And it's not just unacceptable to me, it's unacceptable to everybody in this town that did not get a chance to even know about this. So, I went back clear to 2021, as far as I could go on your website, and this same ordinance is passed every year. I don't understand why it couldn't have been put in the paper. I know that you had a request to have a special meeting about the tower, and as far as I know, that hasn't happened, and I just wonder if it's going to happen. Or do we just continue to do this? I come and give my opinion, and we never get to have any questions or any dialogue.
No, I would love to have a special meeting, but I don't see a date. I don't see any recent talk on a date.
So that is something that I think that you should consider. I spoke to Colorado History, and they told me, I said, this is a done deal. They tell me it's a done deal. They've already put $50,000 in, and this can't be stopped. And he said, it absolutely can be stopped at any time. The board can stop it. It can be stopped. I had another person that came here and did some things for the tower, and he said to me, this can be stopped. I believe you need to check with your lawyer, and you need to find out. And I really don't care if they lose their $50,000, because I feel like I'm losing my $50,000 down payment that I will never see again.
Who said they're losing 50?
That's what I was told in my email. Pardon?
Vertical bridge or the town?
The vertical bridge.
They put preliminary work, I assume.
Yeah, probably, and
That's what I was told when I came in and asked, after I found out there was gonna be a tower across the street, and I asked, is this done? Of course, I hadn't seen any of the paperwork, I didn't realize it was done back in October. Is this finished? Can we go back? Can we have a meeting? Can we do anything? How come I didn't know? How come? And that was what was said to me. They put $50,000 into this. I have the email, and they're not gonna stop, and the tower will go.
Yeah. I don't know if it really is my place, but why don't you get a petition together? I mean, if you have a zillion freaking signatures, that's hard to ignore. And as from a citizen standpoint, that also carries weight with a company. So if they look at a lot of hostility, then, I mean, that's.
And you know, and I can do that. And I've thought about that. And I've been told I probably should do it. But you know, it would have been nice to have that opportunity back in October.
But we are where we
In
are.
May.
So, yeah, we can take another look at the lease. I mean, I don't have a problem doing that, but we are kind of behind the curve as far as putting a stop to it, so to speak. So that means you have to go to extraordinary measures if you want to stop
Oh,
it.
and I will go to extraordinary
So-
measures. I'm almost ready. I've got just about all the facts that I need.
So,
All the emails. I put in another request today, and I'll get this last batch that I need, and then. But I sure would appreciate it if I didn't have to do that.
yeah, but it's gonna be tough. I mean, it also, if you expect the town to do something, it also helps to have a lot of vocal opposition out there that a company can't ignore.
Well, and I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that don't want it,
I hear that.
And
I
that are
hear
upset,
here.
that are concerned about it, but I think it goes back to, people are much more concerned that it happened without them knowing.
Yeah, well, that's a tough call, because, I mean, it's published, it's, you know what, and my wife once, when I told her, when I was complaining to her when she was on the board, she says, well, why don't you show up at the bloody meetings? So, you know what,
Well-
she's got a good point, so that's why I'm sitting here and she's not, so. it
Yeah,
is what it is.
and you know, I get that, I'm willing to take that responsibility. And I won't take my eyes off of you again, because I don't trust any of you anymore. Even just a simple, Gene, you might want to go to this meeting, would have been nice. Well, I think you need to look into it before it gets much worse. There is no reason. I have written to the lease managers at Vertical Bridge. I'm in contact with them. I'll do it if I have to. But I think it would make the town feel a lot better if you all stood up and said, I was wrong. I didn't let you know what was coming.
I'll tell you that, Jane. I should have known all the stuff that was going on with the Red Bell Tower. I should have.
But this
Tell
was way before the Red Bell Tower.
No, I mean, just, you know, the people's opposition for the Red Bell, and then nobody was coming in here to
Yeah,
ask about a thing, so I'm sorry, Jane.
yeah, the UT Byway Committee was asked to write a letter, or make a statement of opposition for the Red Bell Tower. And I know this is, you know what, and here I sat there at that meeting, at that UT Byway meeting, dumb and happy, because I wasn't gonna have a 100-foot tower across the street from my house. And then a few days later, I found out I am. Maybe we could have had a little nudge there. It's It was not done right, and you can go back and you can read in those minutes it wasn't done right. You went through 3 different spots. Even if I had come in and looked at your agendas, you know, you can flip your meetings hanging out here on your bulletin board, and you can flip it up, and you can see the agenda. All I would have ever seen was that there was going to be a tower out at the shooting range. That's all I would have ever seen. And I would have gone home and I would have said, wow, they're going to put a tower out at the shooting range. Until even in August, your minutes of your meeting say the new site has been approved by T-Mobile. We can move forward. And it doesn't say a word about where the site is. So in August, nobody was still saying where the site was. You cannot tell me, you will never convince me that that was not hidden on purpose. Now, I don't think any of you are malicious people. And I don't think any of you did it maliciously to me. But I don't think you thought about it very well.
I didn't.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't done on purpose, I can guarantee that. Okay.
And that's good. You know, I still love you all. You're still my neighbors. You're still my friends. But it's wrong. And you have a chance to step up and say, it was wrong. We didn't do this right. We need to correct it. Send it back out to the dump. Put it up at Hilltop. That's who it's for anyway. We all know that. Let them have it in their yard. So I would appreciate if you would have a special meeting.
Thank you, Jane. Next, James Pierce.
Actually, I'm on the agenda.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Yep. All right. First, can I have consent for meeting minutes of February 12th? Budget.
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Paula,
Yeah.
Elaine, Penny? Yes, motion carried. All right, I do have something I want to add to the agenda. It's Jamie Hearn and her proposal ordinance short-term rentals. You want to put that at the end?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or I just put it at the end of our business.
it's okay, very good.
Do we have a hard copy of that?
She does, she,
I have some more. It was emailed this afternoon.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to look at it.
all right.
Can I get one, Jamie?
I'd like one.
So I don't have to do it in my phone.
Yeah, I don't have my phone to look at either. Thank you.
All right, first on new business is approve the letter to the U.S. Secretary of Interior.
Did you see that?
Did I see your changes? I didn't see your changes, but I will say I met with Dan, if I may,
Yes, absolutely.
a couple weeks ago, and he said that they're kind of on pause anyway, waiting for the new administration, the new BLM manager, which was happening at that time. to kind of give direction. So, but I think this strongly worded letter will really help. So I just want to get that in the Federal Register and the record for them. But
I don't know if there's a copy of that printed out here or not.
Of the revisions,
I give her mine, 'cause
yeah.
It was nothing like specific.
was it grammar?
But like you said, Natarita had already approved what you put together, so.
I can have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the letter with the revisions for the U.S. Secretary of Interior.
Second.
All right, we'll start with Eileen.
Yes.
Paula.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Penny. Tim.
Pending any revision that Amy might have.
I'll probably find some grammar on there. Do you want that back?
Scott.
I got it emailed, I think.
Okay.
Yes, motion carried. All right, next is John Reed, discussion on manufactured homes and tiny homes.
Good evening, John Reed. Tim brought up, bring up some proposals on the codes to see if there's something that can be done, so we put time in it. 2 sections, in Article 4 on the manufactured homes. A lot of the area in there is definitely, it's just following federal law on these houses and stuff. Manufactured home is different from a stick frame. They depreciate.
Can you go back and tell me which reference you're on?
Just the Article 4 home regulations, pre-manufactured structures
Okay.
on there. So in one section there, just needs some clarification between a privately owned and a non-rental sites. That's in the section, first page there, under 881, section D, and it's highlighted. On the second page of that section. It's just something to
You
look
highlighted
into.
it in gray and that part on my old eyes.
Right, mine's green, I turned it in green. But yeah, so manufactured home will actually lose depreciation, whereas a stick frame won't. So when you get back, farther back into this code, in the occupancy of a mobile home, manufactured home. So it breaks it down to where, if somebody's not living in there for a year, you need to board it up, disconnect all utilities. If somebody's not living there in the second year, you can ask for an extension on that. But after the third year, you're out of luck on that. And where the hardship comes in on that is a stick frame. You can't move a stick frame. Well, you can, but it's
Right.
difficult. Okay, mobile home, yes, you can move it, but you're causing a hardship on the people who own that. What I don't see is if the mobile home is kept up and it's not falling in disrepair, if there could be a variance put into these codes to where it's okay for that house to sit there unoccupied, as long as they're doing a annual or semi-annual inspection of it to make sure that it's not become habitat for wildlife, and it's not falling apart, the roof is still good, and I've got leaks in it, stuff like that, to where, if somebody does come back in, because if we fall on hard economic times, like I said last meeting, you're gonna bankrupt the individual, you bankrupt this town, because it's gonna, people will have to wind up moving.
John, may I ask, have we given you a ticket, or have we enforcing this?
No, this here,
I was just wondering.
no, this comes in because I'm trying to find a way to rectify my situation from me living in my RV. We're working on the other one. We thought we might start with a smaller one. Some land come up, possibility for sale that I don't want to invest in it unless I get some of these issues worked out in the code, because if I invest in it, and then it comes up that, well, I can't put a trailer house in there on those spots, because then if we have hard economic time and I can't rent them, then I have to move them out of there and move them somewhere. So that would bankrupt me. Or if can't put one in there, then the second section we'll talk about just a little bit is on the tiny homes and stuff like that, variation on that. so my question on these manufactured homes is if we can put it in there, as long as that place is kept up, the yard's kept up, the house is kept up, that the people are not forced to move that house after a 3-year period.
Right, because, a lot of this comes in from, I mean, Natarita went through this problem. They had a whole area down there that was old mobile homes falling apart, and they turned into tweaker dens and whatnot, so.
There's
And
that.
there's one sitting up on Elm Street right now that needs to be probably done something with, because it's been there for years and nobody keeps it up, and then it turns into a magnet for problems, so, yeah, I don't, it definitely, as long as it's kept up, I wouldn't have a problem.
Okay, could we put that, come back into that code and put a den?
This is a
Amendment to
possibility
that?
you're thinking of, this isn't something that this is a possibility for John to do, right, is what you're thinking of?
Well, it just doesn't affect me.
Not necessarily right now, it doesn't affect you, it's just.
Down the road, if I
Down the
buy,
road,
if I
if you
do
were to
invest
do it,
in
yeah.
this,
Mhm.
and I put a trailer house on that lot versus a tiny home,
Mhm.
the trailer house I would have to move, the tiny home would be permanent, so I wouldn't have to move it.
Yeah.
If it's be there empty, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't have to move it, versus a mobile home,
Mhm.
without occupancy, I would have to move it at my expense, and
Mhm.
then I'd lose out
Yeah.
on that. So all I'm asking is put an amendment in there
Yeah.
where if the property's kept up and looked after and the trailer's in good condition, you're not forced to have to move that out of there.
Mhm.
Because I'm probably not 50% of this town is made up of trailer houses. A lot of them are abandoned, they're sitting there,
Yeah,
and a lot of them are not being kept up.
yeah, there's some that needs to be torn down or
Okay,
gone.
there's a lot of
for
stick
sure.
frames that need to be torn down around here.
This is true, this
Okay.
is true.
So
Probably
they're
about
trying to,
50-50
they're trying to
with
sell
that.
the land and bulldoze the house, basically, is what's
Yeah.
gonna happen, because they've been sitting there. So, and that's highlighted in that section back there, all the way in the back, there's so many different, but it falls under the occupancy area there, and the city's probably great out there.
Requirements.
If we can word that, and this won't just help, not just for me, but other people in the town here on that, so that as long as they keep it up and keep it in good condition, you're not gonna be forced to have to move that trailer, because it's not cheap to move a trailer.
Are these our
Those are your codes.
These
Those
are our
trailers
codes, these
straight
aren't
off.
these aren't the state codes, these are
No,
our
those
codes.
are come off the town
Okay.
site. And this is after because these codes back in November were different, so since November, these have been updated and rearranged. Because if you go back, when she's talking about the poultry, it used to be listed as chickens, you can only have 12, which is hard to do because you have to pay extra for 12 versus buying 15 chickens, then you get a cheaper rate. Most places sell their chickens 15, you get a better price on them. You buy 12, you pay an extra $25 shipping fee on that. But they changed the wording to the poultry's to only be there, but you can also only one be a rooster versus before it was no roosters in town. So there's been some changes, you've updated those codes, but these are right off the Nucla site. Printed out, went through.
Yeah, that whole occupancy requirement one of that section.
Yeah,
has to be looked
But
at.
yeah, if we could put a very amendment in there, because like I said, it won't just help me, it'll help other people.
I don't know, I'm not a fan of some of the other language either, it's boarding up all the windows and doors, be disconnected from power, water, gas.
Mhm.
We'd have to review whether we really want all of that to happen, because then it's just obvious.
Yeah, then you got squatters that can sneak in and it's boarded up and
Right.
it gives them ain't nobody in that house.
Nobody, it gives them the
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
So if maybe we look at that, maybe reword, maybe take that section out or something.
Absolutely.
But I, if they keep,
I think we'd have to have something in there that requires the owner though to stay on top of it. In
yes,
other words,
definitely.
you know, and
You know,
trouble is,
Have to
some of
be
these
cared
end
for.
up being,
You know, if
some of
you're-
these end up being absentee owners.
If
so-
you're not local, contact somebody in town to go take care of the property for you.
Yeah, as long as they stay within the fire code. You
You mean not try to burn down the garage?
know, it needs weeds.
The weeds growing, and yeah, burned down the neighbor's house because of the weeds.
I
So-
don't think he was directing that either.
Yeah, I don't think. All right, so, yeah, if we can look at the mobile home regulations, manufactured home, we maybe change that section there, cause that puts a lot of people in the bind. So on the tiny house section, and I dropped off, and also, just one section in there, and then the second page on it is actually the, kind of what I wrote, maybe the changes that could be taken into consideration. But a tiny home, when they're talking about 500 square feet, and then they give the measurements. The measurements that are listed here are for the mobile tiny home, the one that's on wheels, and we all know that's an RV. It doesn't- You can call it a tiny home, but it's still on wheels, it's still considered an RV. Whereas a platform-based tiny home that you're gonna bolt to the ground,
Yes.
okay, the measurements of 28 feet long by 8.5 feet wide, those are restricted to the mobile ones, okay? And if you add, and you multiply those two, you only come up with 235 square feet versus your 500 square feet. So, they build sheds, like, I guess there's a gentleman here that was putting in tiny homes and was just basically dropping sheds in, modifying, turning them into tiny homes. And they build those at certain dimensions on those. So to reach the 500 square feet, you would have to have a 31.5 foot shed, and they don't make those. Okay, so that's where on this second one, if you go by 28 by 32, okay, it gives a fair living area for a smallish family. And if you change the height restriction, because the height restriction is 13 feet 6 inches, which is for a
An
mobile
18
home.
trailer, yeah.
Be pulling down the road. If you're gonna be putting
Or
this
a
thing on
bridge.
a, yeah, so it goes under a bridge, unless you have overheight, plates or something like that. But if you're gonna plant it on the ground, and bolt it to the ground, just like a house is, you can increase that 13 feet 6 inches by 3 feet, and that would give you the ability to have a loft, like an upstairs, that would actually fall within the codes that they've come out with on codes for tiny homes, which is the Q code, Appendix Q. And I attached that there, and that gives a breakdown of what tiny homes should be on there. So in this section of 8-301, if you go in there maybe and change those measurements around, if you're willing to do that, it's still not a gigantic house, but it'd be a little bit over 500 square feet. Okay, it would actually come up to, I think,
512. 512.
yeah, 512. So 12 feet over, and that's the 16 foot wide by 32 foot long. And most mobile homes, trailers, you can't move into anything less than 10 feet on a mobile home. That's really kind of against the law. There's some people out with this last hurricane that FEMA dropped off this trailer. They hooked it up. Doesn't meet code because it's less than 10 foot wide. So they can't even move in. So you can get them 14 wide or 16 wide. They don't really make a shed 14 wide. They make a 12 or they make a 16.
I don't know if I'd recommend people reuse sheds. That thing turned into kind of fiasco down there because they used sheds.
Right.
Where are those
So
at?
many modifications. That's these down here off of.
You talk about, Brother Dave and Tracy's place? Those were sheds that moved in? Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Modified
if you,
sheds. and
if you go in there right, now these that I've added here on the back, they're a pre-made, they're sent in sections, comes on a flatbed truck, they set it down, you assemble it. These are rated at 130 miles per hour, so on the wind speeds, so they'll withstand more than anything we've ever had around here on that. So hurricane force winds are what these are designed, just kind of a pictures on the back and kind of what they look like. And yes, they do have to be modified a bit on it, because you don't want a double wide door out there, you just want single doors. They'll have to add an additional door, because you have to have the two egresses on them. But just like if you're building a stick frame house, when you build it, you put the floor in, you put the walls up, you put the wiring and plumbing in, get the inspection, you put the insulation and drywall on. That's the same thing, it's
It's a
basically
house.
same thing as a stick house, it's just smaller and it comes prefab, so you just have to set the walls up, bolt them together and stuff. And you would pour a cement pad, and they would be bolted just like a regular house has to meet code.
What do those
On
go
it.
for?
Say again, please.
What do those go for?
About those ones that I've got listed on there, that 14 by, or that 16 by 232 at a Home Depot goes for about $14,000. Okay. I get a little bit of a break. Because Home Depot gives a military discount, so I get a little bit of a break on it. I'll take a break everywhere I can.
You fill out their little thing where you have to fill it, cause you have to like log in and get all your stuff turned in.
I got a little app, so I just bring it up, I got a Q code on it, they scan it and registers that I get my discount. So if we do change those measurements on that, but like I said, they're just like a stick house, they're just smaller. You build a stick house from the ground up, you gotta do all those things. You know, you have to stay on top of it, you can't take 5 years to build it, because then you wind up with a log cabin with just walls up and no roof on it down there on the side of Lincoln. I won't mention who built that. And it's left open to the weather, and it's, you know, it just needs to be torn down type of thing. So when you're putting these in, you get them up, you go through just like a regular house, you bring in your inspectors. And they may come in and inspect the electricity and inspect the plumbing. And then before you can, you know, you can't just put it all together and have somebody come in, because they've got to be able to view the areas that's in. So you still have to follow the building codes. It's just you're getting a pretty simple building that all you got to do is raise the wall up and nail it together.
Yep.
Versus on that. So if you take a look at those, and those two sections affect me on whether I would be purchasing that property. Whether I would be moving mobile homes on there or building tiny homes on there, because I can't live in all those houses. So if I built them and invested in that, it would be for an income to be rented for people to have housing here. And stuff. And I'm not the type that I would look, when I rent those, it'd be just covering the cost of the place and making a little bit off of it. I wouldn't be trying to make myself rich off that. I'm not in that kind of person.
You're not gonna be a slumlord?
And I'm close by, so when they start getting loud, I know what door to knock on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you address those two areas there and look at those proposals, change the wording on the mobile manufacturer's home, change the measurements on this basically a stick frame tiny home on there. Be easier on that. To follow up a little bit with last meeting, Tim brought up a valid point of the stressing the infrastructure that we have on our water and sewer in this town, because it is old. Going with the, you know, kind of having an idea, would give us a better idea on how to reword the RV situation. If we could take a look at how the town's water sewer infrastructure could only handle so much, and if we can get a kind of an idea if there's areas that only can handle this, or is it the whole town that can handle this? Or how,
Yeah.
you know, I understand not having 40 RVs on your land, trying to hook up 40
Well,
RVs
it's
and
just a
stuff
lot
like
of your
that.
service lines run right through the middle of lots, and there's still a lot of clay pipe out there, there's
Yeah.
still a lot of stuff that's just, you start loading it up with a big load and you're gonna have a bloody mess.
Right. So, so it's not just certain areas of town, we're talking about the whole town.
There's a fair bit of the town that is, yeah, it's, as far as especially sewer,
Okay.
worse than water by
Uh,
far. But yes, we'd have to look at the load on the, we have to, I mean, that's part of the whole thing is we have to look at the load on the treatment system, period. That
Right.
includes the lagoon system.
To see
That's
what it can
only-
handle.
That's
This-
only set up for a
because that's-
certain amount, yeah.
That affects too, if we filled up every housing that we had sitting around here empty, if we had an influx of people that come in and moved into those places, we'd have to be able to handle that type of thing, so.
Yeah, and I know the point was brought up in an email and there was a request for feedback, but I thought that was kind of better discussed in the meeting rather
Okay.
than us trying to email back and forth, because really that's not the proper form. Most of our business, you know, unless it's something really, an emergency, it should be done in an open meeting.
Okay, yeah, definitely not an emergency, but yeah, if we can just, you know, it would help us with our wording on that proposal, if we kinda knew what the overload point would be.
That's part of it. There's the rest of it, part of it is that we don't wanna become a bloody well, we're putting up every worker from Telluride, we don't get the benefit that we would receive from permanent residents sitting here.
Yeah.
So, you know, so there's that.
Can
and
you
there's-
elaborate what you mean by that? Like the benefit from permanent, like you're talking about tax revenue, like what exactly?
They're part of the community more so than people who are basically pushed out. Because we have people moving here from Telluride and Ophir because they can't afford to live up there, but they don't really live here. They buy houses, they may be here for a bit, but most of the money's still spent at that end of the, and not at this end.
Yeah, they're not
So,
making an investment.
They're
in our
not really,
community.
right, well, they're not really what I'd call a resident,
Right.
so we're a part of the
Well,
community.
Yeah, this is more like our permanent residents here that wanna live in this town, wanna be here, wanna be
And
part of this
yeah.
community and stuff. But yeah, if this is something that would help, maybe it would help us with a game plan of what actually the system can handle and how many more, not necessarily how many more, but what would be a viable, you know, one additional RV on owned property, would that put too much of a strain on the system, or maybe up to 2? Don't want 40, definitely, because, you know, we don't want that kind of situation there. But that just gives us more of an idea of how we can word the proposal for the RV living situation on there. So look at those 2 there, and then moving on. The next section is, I'm speaking with the VFW, okay? Community centers put back together now, and we are grateful to have, our, post in that. We've been enjoying not freezing. It's been nice. We got to thinking of maybe having a community breakfast, like on the 3rd Saturday of the month. Start out with just every other month for right now, just to see kind of how we go. Paradox has theirs on the 2nd Saturday, so we went with the 3rd Saturday, so we wouldn't kind of interfere with Paradox. We're looking at you know, being able to get this rent free on being able to use the kitchen facilities. Definitely we clean it up, take care of it, put everything back up and stuff like that. Treat it like it's just our home on it. But it would help VFW out as a fundraiser. The money that we bring in with VFW, most of it goes out to scholarships, helping other vets and stuff like that. So.
I'm for it. I don't think we want to go for a vote. Can I have a motion?
Except for maybe a deposit to handle any cleanup that might be had and done that doesn't.
I think that's already been taken care of. Tom put one down, he said just hold on to it.
So, yeah, other than that, I'm fine with a no fee.
Do we need to make a motion?
I just had a question, because I don't know it off the top of my head, but what is the nonprofit rate for using the kitchen,
The kitchen add-on is,
for the nonprofit?
I have to come and get that one.
Okay, I'm sorry, should have asked you that earlier, I just don't remember that, so I'm curious.
And while she's,
Yep, go ahead.
so while she's looking that up, Memorial Day, hopefully, will be a little bit more special this year. Be posting it out in the paper and stuff, but I have put in a request for an F-16 flyover. So weather permitting, we'll have that during our Memorial Day ceremony out at the cemetery.
Who, Navy? Air Force?
It's Air National Guard
Okay.
who actually does the flight.
Yeah.
And you would think we're under Colorado control, but we're under Salt Lake control. Because we're on this side of the mountains.
Yeah. So that might be better. I
It
don't
took
know.
a year to get approval.
Oh, okay. Well, good work. Awesome. Thank you for doing it.
Here you go. There you go. So it was, for a nonprofit, it was
Half a day,
half a day, $25, full day was 50. I just was curious.
Kitchen only for the kitchen.
That's for the kitchen, so. Curious.
Can I have a motion? Or do we want to discuss it more?
I'll make a motion to approve the use of VFW for a community breakfast or whatever, with no fee except for the deposit.
I'll second it.
All right. Elaine?
I do see what you're doing, I appreciate what you guys do, and I'll vote for it this time, but I do like to see us make money off of our, cause if we constantly give it away, then we don't make any money off of it, and we are in the hole on that all the time anyway, so, but on this time, we'll vote yes for it.
Okay, well, we were looking at this being
Permanent.
a permanent
Yes.
versus a one-time thing.
So
Yeah, his says every month,
Yeah, once a month.
once a month.
Or every other month.
Every other month to start, to see if we have enough participation
So
on it.
I'm gonna vote yes as long as it's every other month, but if you guys do change the schedule, could you come back and visit with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Penny?
You still there?
Penny, you there?
Phone go dead?
So it shouldn't have went dead.
Oh,
Was it- Oh, she said yes.
oh, yes, Tim.
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Yes, motion carried.
Right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John. All right, next, new business, approve the boundary adjustment at 476 East Fifth Avenue, fixing the legal description that was filed in error.
All right, I'm gonna head and exhibit, this is the Bell Flora edition.
Oh,
There's
okay.
the old ordinance, and to save paper, I did both sides. The new and the old.
This is where,
It's rather telling that if you look at the ordinance exhibit, the surveyor noted that he compiled this map from the legal descriptions. There was no survey made. Turns out that the tie to what was presumed the quarter corner is off 200 feet. So I'm surveying the place, drop in the improvements for the improvement survey, I drop in the boundary, and the boundary is 200 feet east. Since this is annexed into town, it's going through the town. I do ask that if possible, I could add 480 to the 476 because the two properties were brought in as under one ordinance, and they both need to be fixed. So I've adjusted with the added caveat that the original boundary had the north-south property lines on a southeast bearing of 2 degrees. The fences are on a southwest bearing of 4 degrees. So they flipped the quadrant as well. The property was scheduled to close until this boundary popped up, and with the closing's been pushed to Friday next week.
Yeah, well, maybe.
So
So, in a nutshell, what the hell's the problem?
Just gotta love the phrasing of
Approved by the
something.
town. That's the
So
sum.
we annexed what? So we annexed something that,
Yeah, next empty field.
yeah.
And like I said, you. And,
Keep
speaking to Kim Cooper, I'm trying to get hold of Jessica because instead of just being able to write a correct legal description and file it, you have to go through a boundary adjustment. But speaking to Kim Cooper, she's going, oh, you're finally gonna fix that. So people have known. This is somewhat unique in my experience. At any rate, I spoke to, papers.
Do the same thing.
looking to-
That is some small letters.
Well,
So we
it's gonna be a 24 by 36, but, unfortunately, I got a hard drive that thinks it's about dead. So I wasn't able to get the full drafting, the full-size plan.
So we annexed, the property we annexed originally was based on legal descriptions, not a survey.
And
So it's out by 200 feet.
east-west.
So,
The annexation's going to have to be revised.
yeah. And they wanna close next Friday?
Well, as far as the, title company is
They don't
concerned,
care.
they want the boundary fixed, whether it's in town or out of town, doesn't matter to them.
So it
I
doesn't
will
matter.
note that it's surrounded by county property. And the county has said that if, rather than having to jump through their application process, a month of review, et cetera, they will accept the town's approval. Although they do want to sign on it.
Wow, must be a different county you're talking to.
Oh, if this was flipping San Miguel, you'd be stuck with an $800 application fee and. So,
Anybody have any thoughts
So-
on
So technically, this fixes the whole problem?
other than, writing an amendment to the ordinance,
For the annexation.
the annexation, at some future point, which by talking the Tabors into getting it done now means that they'll have a complete boundary to put into the revised ordinance. I mean, I'd spoken to them a couple of weeks ago, I had to call them again to, you want to do this now.
So they're going by the old fence lines now, is what you're
And
saying?
I'm using the existing lines of occupation, the fences. And since it turns out that it fits in the northwest corner of the 16th, I'm holding, rather than the fence on the west boundary, I'm holding the 16th line. If I used the fence, there would be a 2-foot sliver of ground between the properties.
Mhm.
That's what it shows now, anyway.
Yeah, it's, I'm still at a loss as to how it's 210 feet off.
That's a lot.
It's, well, the quarter corner wasn't set at the time the legal descriptions were written, so the original call comes 2,700 and some odd feet from the section corner. And then over the 800 feet. The bearing is a 4-degree bearing, which is approximately what the section line is. And then they come across at the 8932, which is the platted center line bearing of the section, all of the Nucla subdivision is based on. But if they had presumed that the center line of Ash and Fifth was the quarter corner, that's only 173 feet from the quarter corner. So where the fact that it came off 210 feet, I have no idea. It's,
Probably the bar.
and it was originally, I believe, from Cooper to Cooper. So they might not have been quite as concerned.
Oh, it would have been nice to be able to actually read most of it.
I didn't do it.
Does this help?
I got it.
It doesn't make it.
Use your phone.
Ah, there you go. So anyway. So basically, you want us to approve the boundary adjustment
For 476 and 480.
and 480.
Got a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the boundary adjustment for 476 and 480 Fifth Avenue, East Fifth Avenue, excuse me.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Scott?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Penny? Yes. David?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Elaine?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carried.
And as a final note, this is why you should get your property sold before you buy it, or surveyed before you buy it or sell it.
That sounds like a freaking business.
Drumming up business.
Drumming up business statement. Only Trump gets advertised when he's on the job.
On the last one, I take it that it goes along with us approving.
You was on it twice, I think.
Well, it's kind of worded just a little different.
Oh, okay.
It's still the same.
Yeah, same thing, yeah, very good. All right, Jamie,
Is it okay if I sit down?
absolutely.
Okay, so this came up after our conversation, at the last meeting, just about some concerns I saw within the code, that maybe it doesn't offer some of the protections that I hear a lot of people say that we're looking for. One of the things that I experienced renting my house out was people telling me that they were coming to town to buy a second home that they would rent out when they weren't here. And it seems like not what people in this community are going for, right? We're trying to have a community of people that we know, that we love, that it's a small, tight-knit place, not a tourist trap, essentially. And I think there's also, from discussions that we've had, opportunity for the town to raise some revenue. Tourism does bring in money, and I think the town should see some of that. So I went through and kind of pulled from different towns and cities around Colorado, other places I've lived. This is a little more on the strict side, but mainly it's just parameters to hold people who have short-term rentals accountable. Like was discussed with the manufactured homes and like upkeep of that, having a designated property owner or agent here. So if the owner of the property lives out of state or lives somewhere else, they have to have someone local to manage the rental when they're not around. The other strict thing in here is that the property must be a primary residence or owned for at least 2 years before it's eligible for use as a short-term rental. That prevents people from just coming in, buying a property, and immediately renting it out. By not leaving it as just a primary residence, I think it's important to also keep it open to investors. Like, if you want to like thought experiment, like the kind of abandoned properties around town, right? Like, who's gonna buy that? Probably not like a cool young couple moving to town or a young family or something. They're not gonna have the money to afford the down payment and all the repairs, etc. But an investor might.
Flippers do, yes, they already are.
Yeah. And I think, short-term rentals, it's a great opportunity for people to recoup some of the costs for making those investments. However, this would essentially make it so that they have to long-term rent it for a couple of years and give us some of that long-term housing that we're looking for. Again, I think it's just meant to be like a starting board. I know I only got it to you this afternoon. Sorry for the delay. But yeah, just wondering if you guys have feedback, questions, concerns, etc. Again, I think in terms of generating income, this would be a permit process, right? So when people apply for the permit, there should be a fee for doing that because you guys have to do paperwork and keep track of all this, whatever. Every year, it could be a yearly fee for this. Again, this is generating income. The town should see some of that. Questions, thoughts?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to read it before the
But
meeting,
yeah, that's-
so I don't
okay,
have
yeah.
any questions for you, but I will read it through and.
Pretty much the same for me on that, okay?
Yeah, and good to consider with other.
But don't expect any feedback on email.
Okay, yeah, fair. And so if we could pivot to that, do you have any feedback as per my email? Again, I'm not trying to be confrontational. We're generally trying to just understand all the concerns so that we can effectively address them as we come up with ideas for changes.
Well, one concern is you open the door to people, suddenly you have a proliferation of RVs on lots, by people's houses, tied into the same sewer system,
Yeah,
tied
that's
into
my
the same
concern.
water, and running power from the house. So, I mean, that could turn into nothing but a house here, RV here, house here, RV here, house here, RV here, because obviously there's not enough housing at that end of the San Miguel County at the far end of there, so that's already spilling over, but it's not something we want as what I'd call temporary structures for people. I don't even really want the bedroom community idea for Telluride, but be that what it is, I certainly prefer to see houses that go in under engineering review and everything else without people just, bam, slapping an RV on the lot next to their house, tying it into the sewer, tying it into the water, and tying it into the power that's existing, and there's actually no way to control what happens after that. So it could be a big problem.
So if it were, as per the way the code is currently written, it has to be metered separately, a separate sewer attachment, etc. You're saying even that is problematic. That it's not just like an extension cord to somebody's house. If they have an actual metered setup, that's still an issue.
To a certain extent, yes. Just
Okay.
because of the fact that, like I said, you have proliferation of RVs on lots with houses, and where does it stop? Because once you let the camel's nose under the tent, then the whole camel's gonna be in your tent. So, we're gonna have to take a hard look at this, there's no doubt about it.
Okay. And as John said as well, is there any way to get concrete numbers about like an audit of the sewer system to understand where we're at, if this is like a possibility or probability? I'm just trying to gauge like where.
We know the sewer's not good.
Well, like I said, there's too many clay pipes running down through the middle of existing lots that are the service line for multiple houses. So, they're 4-inch pipe or whatever, and when you start adding to that, a system that's already probably broken somewhere in there, there is no piping,
The last
it
time
just
there
goes
was-
through the dirt, then, and this is not uncommon, this has been found in this town a whole lot.
The last upgrade that I know of was in the mid-eighties. They redid the main and everything out of the port.
Okay, anybody else? again, specifically like seeking the answer to the question of like, we don't want RVs because, like, I've heard, oh, we don't want that, but like a little bit more elaboration as to what specifically the issue is. And somewhere I get stuck up when you say like, oh, we don't want them all over town. Well, like looking over town, like they're literally half of the houses probably have an RV sitting in the driveway, and I'm just a little bit like genuinely lost of that's okay for it to be stored there and it to be their toy or something, but as soon as the person's living in it, then it becomes a problem. And I'm just looking for better answers to that.
So when I first got on the board, which would have been, 2017 or somewhere in there, of course, the board was completely different, but they were struggling with, apparently they hadn't had any enforcement, or maybe they had just had a period of time where they just were allowing people to add RVs and live in them on other properties. But it kind of goes back to what Tim was saying, they were having trouble kind of reeling that in because there was multiple RVs on a property and they were all plugged into the house and tied into the same sewer system, using the same water source. We even had, I can remember them talking about sewage spilled all over on the ground, raw sewage in places, and it wasn't being taken care of, you know. So there was kind of some health concerns. And I remember when I first got on the board, that was some stuff that they wanted to tighten up and go back to the way the ordinance was written. And so that's what I remember starting, a slow process back then. But it seems like the last, more recent years is when we've actually been more able to enforce some of that stuff. So,
But like, let's use the actual real world example of John. It's
Yeah.
skirted property, it's hooked up to utilities, it's all this, it's someone who's been in the community for a long time, who's clearly not causing disturbances, who's being here, who's spending their money here, etc. Like, does all that you said just apply to, you know, what about that is an issue, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
John is the exception to the rule, quite literally lately. That's not what we've seen. There were 2 trailers just down this, 3rd Street, is that were in very bad shape. They were cooking drugs. I think you know who I'm talking about, the ones with the 2 plug-ins. I think I drove up there and had some really good pictures of them. And it wasn't a good situation. They had 2 extension cords and sewage was everywhere. It was a very bad situation. And that's just something, you know, where do you draw the line? I mean,
Well,
like
I think you
said,
guys have nailed it pretty well, right? It's if you're doing everything correctly, then it's not an issue. And if you're leaving sewage on the ground, and if you're right, it's like, can we write it into the code that if you do it that way, hey, maybe we can find a way to do it. Maybe you can have 1 per property, and that could be acceptable. I mean, are things like that things that you're willing to hear and to work with, or is it, hey, if you got a trailer? I don't know. I'm hearing both things from you. That it's like, if you're not putting, obviously nobody in this room I think wants raw sewage going onto the ground, right? So like, that's the wiggle room that I think we're seeking to be more closely written into the code.
Well, that's where we look at, it's like, if we look at a permit, then the person applying would have to demonstrate that they're gonna do, say what John's done, or you have done, and that their lot has the capacity to handle that extra load, i.e. you don't have sewer service line that's 150 years old, that all you're doing is pumping sewage into the ground because there is no pipe out there anymore. It's just a path through the dirt, and it may necessarily not even be making it to the sewer main. It may be making it into the ground just away from your current place where you're living, but that doesn't mean it's going to the sewer system.
Right, and I don't have it right in front of me right now, but the current code dictates that there should be inspections. Does that not currently happen? Right, so, I mean, we already saw there on.
but when we have, I mean,
Private lines,
We're
like,
not-
we're not,
Just up to the property line.
not their service lines,
Right.
just the
We don't-
town's lines. So,
but we have these trailers plugged in up here, when we have multiple spaces down there and 3 trailer parks that are not being utilized. And so that's the problem, when there's spaces down there in those trailer parks, Why are they all plugged in up here and down on Fifth Street? Why are they plugged in there? If there's spaces open in those trailer parks, why not utilize them? That's my problem.
Would you wanna live on a private lot in the corner of town, or would you wanna live in a trailer park?
But your situation is an exception to what we've dealt with in the past. You are on the corner of town, you have a nice big chunk of property. Yes, absolutely, if I had a choice, I would choose your
But
property.
even then, okay, like, not my.
Here's my thought,
Yeah.
before we go too far. I would look at size of lots, that's where I'm at. Cause you can't, there's a lot of lots in here small, yours is big.
Well, that's what I mean. by
If we have the right, I skimmed through it fast.
Mhm.
But if it's big enough, and I guess, like, we would have to look at our sewer parks but if you came in here and asked for a permit for like power and water and sewer to hook up an RV on the side of your property, and you kept it nice, fenced in or something like that, it's something maybe we would look at.
But you'd have to demonstrate that your lot could handle it. I mean, the town can't go out, pretty soon we're hiring 10 extra people just to check.
But
people's
so,
lots.
like, as a homeowner, you would then hire your own plumber to do an inspection, that they submit a report to the town, is that what that might look like?
It's your service line.
Okay.
Well, your service line, like ours, we've had all of ours, we kinda know what ours look like right now, cause we're trying to get them fixed.
We're working on
So, well,
repairs, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look at our side too when you're asking for a hookup to be an extra.
Right, because like I said, service lines, the towns, mains, if you wanna call them that, that's a really generous term, they go through the middle of lots. So, and then the service line for the house is tied into that main, but that main is literally a piece of crap. So, basically you're tying into a system that can't handle the extra load you may be putting on it. So yes, the town would have to look at their mains in those situations, and it would have to be definitely be a permit process where everything got looked at.
Mhm. And then, the comments surrounding lot size.
Well, we want something that's not, I guess my thing, if there's already a house there, like it's a small lot and you put a camper up in it, you're just packing. It's not like, we want open yards, we want family driven, we've mentioned this, we want people that come into town, they live here. Me being a business owner, the community takes care of me, so I gotta look at that, like I don't know how tourism would help me that much in what I do.
And this, I'm not speaking on the
No,
RV is
you're
separate
good.
from short-term.
That's I guess
yeah.
where my mind goes is
Yeah.
like I look at the local people have taken care of me, and they still do. They are great to me. That's what keeps me going. I don't see very much tourism, so
My concern is always when we look at these type of ordinances and stuff is, are they enforceable for us to be fair to every citizen? And so when it has all this leeway of, well, you live in a great place, so we'll let you have one, but then Jane comes in and she lives in a little place and you can't have one, and John comes in and this is a medium-sized place. And
But we essentially, you already have a precedent for that within the code with like livestock, for example. There's a formula, it's based on how big your lot is, and that's how much other things you could have. So yeah, I could definitely
it
see
could- it
something
could
where you
be
could write that into the code. Like, I think we all agree on what some of the challenges are, that we don't want like shit, but I would definitely push back to the someone living in like a nice yard with a house on it compared to living in an RV park is less desirable in my opinion. And
I agree with that when you drive by our RV park.
yeah, they're not the
I'm not gonna
most
be against
hospitable
that one right
looking.
now.
Come on, beaches is awesome.
I look at it as if your sewer is on its own entity and the water's on its own entity, you know, that way you're not tying into your house sewer and then you're leasing it out to somebody and then you create a problem with them in there. And, you know, it's, as long as it's tied to its own entity, own water and sewer and power, I don't have a problem with it, but.
The flip side is, if you wanna do
That's
if the
if the
property owner
system
wants to do
will allow it.
grunt work and demonstrate that even if you don't have a separate sewer system, that it can handle all that, and it's not gonna be a, you know what, then it'd be some, I mean, I don't have any problem considering that, so, but it has to be demonstrated that that would be a fact. And it's on the property owner to do that, I mean, the town can't do that.
Do we, is there a map of like what parts of the infrastructure have been updated? Areas that they can put new stuff in?
Yeah, it's been mid-80s when the main to the plant.
But I believe, Tim, you're more talking about her service line, right?
And the lock service line,
Yeah.
yeah.
So would-
main.
I guess I go
Okay,
into,
it matters.
would that go back to like what we were talking with Quigley, where if they put another thing on the service line, would there be a fee on top of that? Could we implement that into our,
So then does that?
because you're putting more
sewer line?
waste into our sewer system,
The
so.
taps,
So
the
then
tap fee.
that ups the
Yeah.
tap fees and the sewer,
Yeah,
so you pay more. for
Well,
tap.
and there's multipliers, I think, I don't remember how
Multipliers.
that works
I
on
think we were
the water
talking about
and
once
sewer,
with Quigley's,
so,
but
yeah.
that was, you know, like.
But yeah, I mean, all of that seems like positive to generate income for the town and even maybe spur updates or have private owners help pay for updates or identify issues or that kind of thing, so it,
Private owners already pay for the updates.
yeah. Okay, and then last question, something that came up earlier in the meeting, you mentioned with Jane, getting a, petition going. Are there any requirements for that, of what that might look like in terms of like verifying signatures or that kind of thing? Because when I first started, the process with the RV, I had reached out to Melissa asking for, if there was a process for that and what it looked like, and she couldn't give me one. So I just want to make sure that if signatures are gotten for anything.
Department of Regulatory Agency store, Colorado.
Okay.
I mean, those are formal petitions, I mean, I was rather more thinking of just like a citizen initiative petition that just basically, you go out and get a bunch of names and people, you know, as long as they're, citizens, then it matters, so.
If they have the
residents.
address where they reside on there, which most petitions do, that would state enough to know that they're residents of the town of Nucla that are concerned.
And registered to vote and all that.
Yeah, well, that would you'd have to have checked, because,
Well, there's probably a lot of people
They don't
that
have to
live
be
here
registered to vote,
that are not
quite
registered to
frankly.
vote.
No,
Yeah, I
they don't have to
I
be
was gonna say, if they're
registered.
just giving their opinion on how they feel about it, I mean, it's
Right.
not like it's an official document where you have to check their voter registration. They have their name and whatever the statement is on the top, but they agree with that and they sign it and they live at this address. I mean,
It's
That's-
pretty,
that's
you
basically
see
saying
those
what
all over
his-
the place, you walk into a supermarket in Grand Junction and.
Yeah, I just would wanna make sure that if, for that issue or any others, we don't go through a bunch of work to make that happen and then have a lawyer say, oh, well, this isn't the right format or something and shut it down,
from
so.
my understanding, I think Tim was just looking for some feedback to get a better gauge of
What the
Public
town's
opinion.
thinking.
the public opinion in the community, am I wrong, what you were aiming
No.
for there? Okay.
And that, and like I said, if you wanna fight the machine, then
Mhm.
better have ammunition.
Well, you guys totally just met me, so.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll read through this, I'm sorry I didn't have time to. read
Yeah,
it
and
before
I'll
you
follow up, I'll be able to attend the next meeting, but then maybe not so much shortly after that, so, yeah. we can go from there.
And we may have to talk to the board, and maybe we can form a couple of people who would be willing to work on this more closely.
Mhm.
Can't have more than 2 board members, otherwise we've got public meeting postings and everything else, so, but some type of little committee. I mean, we used to have committees that met, and that there was a board member on them and that citizen.
Citizen driven
Yeah,
committees,
so, I mean, maybe we can look at some, so that we can move this down the road without spending 6 hours in a meeting.
All right. The old administrative business, Zoom meeting policy. Have we got,
That's going to remove
I
for the
did,
next
yeah, I
meeting.
read through all of it,
we're gonna table that.
And then-
Well, there, everybody should read it, there's a lot of really good
Yeah.
information in
Yeah,
there.
very good,
Yeah.
very good.
And then it also is making a recommendation from the Sursa attorneys, making a recommendation that this be reviewed by the town's attorney also. They've made their recommendations and markups, but, they always recommend that it is finally reviewed by the town's attorney. Lots and lots of stuff from COVID policy in there, so.
Okay,
Very interesting.
special reports, we see,
I don't know if they've had a meeting since we last met, I don't know.
alright. Mustang,
We did have a meeting. We also had a lovely meeting with the state of Colorado the other day to find out if they're gonna reduce the penalties and fees, regarding the non-compliance reporting issues. So I'm gonna round numbers, cause I didn't write it down, but we were around 38,000 and we're now around 30,000.
31.
Ooh.
Yeah, but 38, or 39, basically, down to 31, but,
Every little bit helps.
I'd like to see another 4 or 5 grand knocked off that, but.
So there's another meeting set up, but they're gonna review how they come to that reduction and everything, they'll explain it further. For some reason, it was kind of odd, they set up the meeting to tell us what it was, but then we're prepared to tell us how they got there.
Maybe we can
Okay.
whittle it down some more time.
So,
Yeah, we're gonna spank you, and I'm not gonna tell you why.
yeah. Anything else from our meeting that I mean, that's all stuck in my head, cause that's the most recent, but,
That was basically
yeah.
about it. That was,
alright. Chamber,
Our board has met many times lately, and they actually are set to meet again, I think around the 10th, they're gonna have a strategic planning meeting, and our community groups that are working on the barrel race and the Jeep tour are all going full force, so that's going very well. If anybody has any desire to participate on either of those committees, they should let me know. And I can't think of anything else.
alright.
It was a lovely banquet.
Oh, thank you, Jane.
In West End,
There hasn't been a meeting.
okay. Lisa,
No
no meeting,
meeting.
alright. I have the manager's report in here, anybody have anything else?
No.
Have a motion,
I'll make a motion here.
yep,
Years ago, we started homes because I remember dozens.
Did you know you're starting to be sure? Yeah, they put down here. Alto? Mike's right across the street. Is he up at Vincent's?
No, there was.
Yeah. I didn't know that they had that. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to talk about it.